Hi guys and welcome to Gaming Watcher. My name is Rolson and in this video I'll take a look at the very first mission of Destiny 1 and Destiny 2 and make a direct comparison of the two. When Bungie made Destiny 2 free to play, they took the first mission from Destiny 1 and made it the first mission that you play through as a new light player. Of course they updated the mission, both visually and gameplay wise. The question is, did they improve it? I'll give you my opinion in the end of the video. There's a lot of sentiment towards Destiny 1 in the community, with a lot of veteran D1 players claiming that the first game in the franchise was better. I started my Destiny journey with Destiny 2 in 2019, so I don't have any nostalgic feelings about the first game. I really want to play through it to get all of the story and context for what is going on in Destiny 2 though. So I've set out to play through the entire game and all of the content and give my unbiased opinion about whether D1 or D2 is the best installment of the series. So let's get into the mission and take a look at the two different versions of it.
Guardian? Eyes up, Guardian. Worked. You're alive. You don't know how long I've been looking for you. I'm a ghost. Actually, now I'm your ghost, and you? Well, you've been dead a long time. So you're going to see a lot of things you won't understand. This is fallen territory. We aren't safe here. I have to get you to the city. Hold still. Don't worry, I'm still with you. We need to move, fast.
So the mission setting is the Cosmodrome in old Russia. This is the patrol zone on Earth in Destiny 1. Instead of the EDC, the European Dead Zone, in Destiny 2. The Cosmodrome is this rusty apocalyptic wasteland. Old rusted cars scattered throughout the landscape as far as the eye can see. It seems barren, dead and abandoned. You get the feeling that the world has ended and there is no life left in this place. The only thing left in this place is memories, telling stories about destruction, death. You can only imagine the horrible events that led to it looking like this. The fear, the desperation, the darkness. The only sounds you hear are the wind blowing through the car wreckage and the ravens flying around looking for things to scavenge. As you approach the enormous wall in front of you, proving that there once lived a thriving civilization here, all of a sudden you hear these horrible howls. This is kind of the feeling that you start out with, and from here the mission evolves. The first thing you notice is the loading screens. Oh my god, the loading screens on console in Destiny 2 are horrible at this time, and apparently they weren't in Destiny 1, so already here I'm very optimistic. The next thing is of course the graphics. When directly compared, you can really see how much better Destiny 2 actually looks. Even though Destiny 1 is a good looking game, even by today's standards, Destiny 2 takes the graphics to another level. The lighting and the coloring just makes the environment look much more real in some way when compared to D1. When I get into this creepy building and walk around in the dark, I see a glimpse of a Fallen crawling inside the wall. And there I noticed something different as well. The Fallen, in my experience, are wearing these purple colored clothes. Always. But in the Destiny 1 version, they're red. Upon investigating this further, I found that the Fallen in D1 wore different colored clothes depending on the house that they belonged to. Which raises the question, do all Fallen in D2 that we have encountered so far belong to the same house? The purple color is the House of Dusk color. According to lore, this is because all the fallen houses banded together during the Red War and became one unified house called the House of Dusk. So in D1 we're fighting multiple factions of Fallen, where in D2 we're actually fighting one unified faction. I'll get more into the lore of the Fallen in future D1 videos, but this was an interesting discovery to me. So in this next scene, Ghost turns on the lights for us and the Fallen come flying at us through this old rusty industrial looking building. Now this particular scene, there is a few changes. First of all, the Ghost dialogue is different.
Hang tight. Fallen thrive in the dark. We won't. We need more light. I'll see what I can do. Another one of these hardened military systems. And a few centuries of entropy working against me. They're coming for us! Here, I found a rifle. Grab it. It's a risk, but I'll get us more light. Hard military system, check. Frayed wires and rust, check. When I flip this switch, expect trouble. Not good, not good. They're definitely not happy to see us. There's a rifle. Grab it.
The sentiment is the same, but different lines are used to convey the meaning. I must say, I prefer the D1 version. It just seems a bit more like we're actually in danger, whereas the D2 lines are a bit more happy-go-lucky, in my opinion. You kind of get the sense that D1 took itself more seriously as a game. Already in the next seconds after this scene, we get another interesting difference in the dialogue. In D1, Ghost simply says,
I hope you know how to use that thing.
whereas in Destiny 2 he says,
I brought you back for a reason, Guardian.
and then he goes on to make different statements based on your class. Here I'm playing as a Titan.
You're a Titan. That means you're a fighter.
I think this is another example of the same thing. The D1 dialogue in this short scene does a better job of immersing you into a story. It makes you feel like you are in this chaotic situation, the Fallen are after you, and you just get handed a rifle and now you have to shoot your way out, fingers crossed. In Destiny 2 the dialogue is more focused on trying to get you into the mechanics of the game, giving you a little bit of context for the class that you have chosen. The next thing I want to comment on is this next sequence where you find your first loot cache. D1, nothing is said other than
A loot cache. Let's see what's inside.
in D2 though, there is a small introduction of the Fallen.
The Fallen are scavengers, alien pirates picking at humanity's remains. Speaking of pirates, there's a loot cache. Let's take what's inside.
Here I like the D2 version better. It does a better job of introducing you to the world. Right after, there is another interesting difference. In D1, this room is filled with trip mines, which incentivizes you to use the sniper that you just picked up. In D2, you got a shotgun and the trip mines are gone, which better suits a shotgun encounter. So then you come into this big room, and here is another noticeable difference. In D1, nothing is said. You just get into the room and fall and drop from the ceiling, surrounding you. In D2 though, Ghost says,
More Fallen. Hit them with everything you've got.
and this is interesting because in D2 you actually have a lot of things to hit them with. You have all your abilities including your super, whereas in D1 you only have your primary and secondary weapon, nothing more. Now this is something that I will get into a lot more in the later D1 videos I'm going to make, but I'll touch on it very lightly here. In D1 there is an actual progression on your character where you unlock abilities and level up. It was also like that in D2 until they released the new light free to play version and made it so that you start the game in power level 750 with everything unlocked. As I said, I'll get into this in future videos, but for now I'll just say in this encounter it meant the difference between feeling like you're in danger in D1 to feeling like an unstoppable god in D2. So now we get out into this big area where there are
Incoming.
huge radio-like towers pointing upwards towards the stars. The ground is shaking and all of a sudden you see fallen ships to your left. Radio towers are falling. You hear the howls.
Fallen ships. This close to the surface. Move!
A large fallen ship flies by right over your head, ground shaking heavily beneath your feet. It's time to fight. Here there is another encounter. There are several differences between the D1 and the D2 encounter that I think is worth mentioning. First of all, in the D2 encounter, this is the first time you will see other players fighting alongside you. This is a nice addition to the mission, I think. This gives you a feeling of a multiplayer game where you will encounter other players right off the bat, whereas in D1, at this point, it feels more like a single player game much like Halo. The second thing I notice is the encounter itself. The D2 encounter is way more difficult than the D1 encounter. The dead walker seen laying on the ground in D1 is alive in D2, and you have to take that down as well. Another thing is that in D2 you get this percentage counter that you have to get up to 100 by killing enemies. In D1 you just have to kill the enemies that are there and then move on. Again, here D2 seems more focused on introducing you to the mechanics. They show you a typical style of encounter where enemies will keep spawning until you have killed a certain amount. They show you how to take down a walker, and they show you how to fight alongside other guardians. D1 seems more focused on the story that is being told, where you're running from the Fallen trying to find a ship. These differences meant the difference between breezing through this encounter in 1 minute in D1 to spending almost 3 minutes completing it in Destiny 2. Which one works better? Well, the D2 encounter definitely was the more fun to play through of the encounters because of the difficulty and the mechanics. But the D1 encounter made me more immersed in the actual story that I was going through at the moment. You kind of forget what you were doing in the D2 encounter because you had to focus on the fighting. Moving on from here, we're going to the jump ship, but before getting there in D1, this happened. And oh my god, that felt great. Well, as I said, the whole character progression discussion I'll save for another video. We've got more missions to cover, so let's get on with it. This cutscene of getting into the ship is exactly the same in both games.
Wild. Hasn't made a jump in centuries. We're lucky the Fallen haven't completely picked it clean.
Will it fly?
I can make it work. Okay, it's not going to break orbit, but it just might get us to the city. Now, above that transmitter. Bringing you in. We can come back for them when you're ready. Let's get you home.
Next thing that happens is that we get to Tower. Who's this guy? In Destiny 2, this is where you get the intro sequence telling you about the Traveler, the Darkness, the Ghost, the Guardians, the Golden Age and the Collapse, whereas you got that story the first time the game was booted up in D1. Instead in D1 we get this.
Welcome to the last safe city on Earth. The only place the Traveler can still protect. It took centuries to build. Now, we're counting every day it stands. And this tower is where the Guardians live.
Now tell me that that right there didn't give you goosebumps. There is also a cutscene like this in D2, and again here you get a bit more of an explanation from Ghost than in D1.
The last survivors of humanity's collapse call the city home. This is why I brought you back. To defend them. to reclaim our lost worlds. We're here. The Traveler.
And look also at the difference between the two travelers. It's no secret that Bungie is masters of making environments, but one thing I especially enjoy is the environmental storytelling that they do. You can see that a lot has happened to the traveler between D1 and D2, and that is awesome. Finally, here is the tower that we land in side by side. I'll do a whole video on the difference between the tower in D1 and D2, but this is the first impression that you get after completing the first mission. And of course, I had to greet the first Guardian I met in the only reasonable way. So the very last thing I want to show you here is Orbit, because, well, that was the last thing I noticed in this first D1 session. Looking at these side by side, I cannot for the love of me understand why they changed it. In my opinion, Orbit looked way cooler in Destiny 1. Maybe it was to make room for this open director button, which might have been hard to see if there was a planet behind it, but damn, Orbit looked amazing in D1. Going through D1 is amazing. At the time I'm making this video, I'm already a bit further into the game, and boy do I have a lot to show you guys in the coming videos. I'll make comparisons like this, but also just story and lore videos to get you guys everything you need to fully understand the story of Destiny so far. So finally, to answer the question I posed in the beginning of the video, did they improve this mission in Destiny 2? I definitely think that they did. Looking at the mission isolated, it is more fun to play through, it looks better, and you get more information about the world of Destiny than in Destiny 1. Looking at the whole experience of starting as a new player in Destiny 2 versus Destiny 1, that's a whole nother story. Destiny 2 is overwhelming to say the least, and does a worse job of immersing the player into the story. D1 excelled at that. If you found this video useful, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. As always, thank you so much for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next video.